Okay, welcome to my presentation on becoming places, experimenting with emergent arts-based practice as method. So through the next series of slides, I'll initially touch on my doctoral methodology and positioning, and then expand on practices that I have adopted for philosophical journeying as a method-driven Deleuzian approach, which explores with place through arts-based practice and philosophical inquiry in the outside as I walk. I'll then also share a small set of pages from my sketchbook work that has emerged through these practices. And then throughout the presentation, I've also included photographs that I will often and regularly take on my walks of the little moments that catch my eye. So through the doctoral studies that I've been undertaking, there's three sort of key questions just to give you an overview of what I'm going to be exploring beyond this arts-based practice and how it contributes to the broader journeying that I'm taking through my thesis studies. And these themes are: what does philosophy do? What does a thesis do? And what does a teacher do or want to do? So bear those in mind as we continue through the presentation. So my positioning, specifically taking inspiration from Barrett's ethico-onto-epistemology. Firstly, my journey emerges through perspectives of posthumanism and new materialism, ecofeminism, Deleuzian concepts of learning, and learning with Indigenous knowledges, learning with place specifically. And these perspectives specifically question existing paradigms and constructs that are Eurocentric and have been contributing to various global crises that we are facing. As a big part of my thesis is to explore an eco and social just future, our futural survival. So we'll also explore colonialist, patriarchal, neoliberal constructs, and especially this perspective around ownership of land. And it all comes entangled into this arts-based practice place and art walk practices. Committing to an ethical world making. So again, very influenced by Barrett and Haraway for our future survival, and specifically centering land and place, whilst exploring languages and ways of being that help shapeshift inherited dualisms and ways of thinking that have separated us as human from nature, or mind from body. So very much looking at a nature, I am nature, we are nature. So the philosophical journeying as a methodology has been inspired from Zinga, Stiers, Bennett and Bunbury. And they state that philosophical journeying as a methodology symbolizes the passage from one place to another, is initiated by questioning meanings, interpretation, and identity, is begun by making a conscious decision to move into unfamiliar territory while maintaining an observing and reflective frame of mind. Journeying without intent is nothing more than aimless wandering. Purposeful journeying leads us to shift and transform the landscape of our previously held assumptions and paradigms. So philosophical journeying as a basis for my emergent practice with place really does influence the conceptual thinking and learning with Indigenous knowledges, with a decolonial critique and awareness of an ethical exploration of my own situated knowledges. So it's influenced through Haraway here. There is a journey of becoming not only with place, concepts and knowledges, but also with reviewing constantly through an ethic that respects cultures without appropriation and actively challenges my own knowledge origins, privileges and inherited perspectives. So what's very important is my background around conceptualizing of place, space, and time. And this very much emerged out of my previous research with hope and practices of hope for future survival. So the term space has been adapted from Payne and Watchow as a hybrid between space as moving through and place as dwelling with. And they quote, to make visible the concept of edge, that in between and often unknown or othered zone of human experience in nature. I've additionally incorporated Grunwald's work on identities entangled with place and through sociocultural environmental ecologies. While learning with Indigenous knowledges, especially the work of Tyson Yunkaporta and Sandra Stiers, a presencing with and as land place is vital to the methodology of my work. And this includes sensing and feeling relationships and reciprocity as doings, as a way of being with the non-human and more than human worlds. These are becomings with place entangled with new knowledges and creativities of the process-orientated arts practice. Very much new knowledges for me. I want to highlight that. So decentering the human and the dominant paradigms. So I've already mentioned Stiers and Yunkaporta, both very influential in a lot of my inquiry at the moment. And I've also brought in language here as very prominent. So Stiers approaches land as first teacher, land as pedagogy, the importance of verb-based languages, of storying, and circle epistemologies, all of which have been very influential in how I'm exploring my own thesis. And Yunkaporta talks about humankind as custodian species of this planet, and storytelling again, yarning as a social place-based relational way of being. And this again has very much influenced how I'm wanting to have relationship with place, but also in the research that I will be aiming to do with teachers as part of the thesis study. And I've added here a Scottish Gaelic word for nature, nadir, and words and language and meanings have become really, really important to how I want to write and how I'm exploring with place as well. So nadir means both nature, the natural world around us, the material world, and nature as in our own nature and the nature of man. The word does not divide nature into us, the human, and the other, or the more than human world. So I wanted to give that as an example of some of the exploration that I've been doing. So I have a quote next from Robin Wall Kimmerer, and again, this really reiterates the importance of language and really exploring how I'm using language and also how I'm learning through other languages. So listening in wild places, we are audience to conversations in a language not our own. My first taste of the missing language was the word Pupui. I stumbled upon it in a book by the Anishinaabe ethnobotanist Kiwe Dinakwai. Pupui, she explained, translates as the force which causes mushrooms to push up from the earth overnight. So my own practice, very briefly, is influenced by four key processes. Shinrin-yoku, the art of forest bathing, coming from Japan. Earth education, earth walks, which was developed in the States and explores sensing and presencing with nature and walking purposefully and pausing and taking moments to really sense yourself as nature and with nature and the habitats and the ecosystems that we are a part of. And then philosophy for children and communities. As a practitioner of this, I'm always astounded by the philosophical inquiries that emerge from a multitude of stimulus and provocations. And I've been exploring very much taking P4C outside and exploring the natural world as provocation for philosophical inquiry. And this very much influences the process and practice that I've undertaken. And then process-orientated arts practice. So again, art as an other language and using art as an emergent practice. It's very iterative, returning to places and expression and photos and imagery, looking at poetry, and really just sensing and feeling what I wish to express out of these different spaces when I'm in them. And it's experimental with place, with thought, body, and expression, and is very much around this encounter affect, and is reflexive in practice. So my actual practice of earth art walking. So I have the great honor of being able to walk straight out of my door into a very, very beautiful landscape. And most days I will do this either for a short walk or for a longer walk. And there's one place that I return to regularly for my specific earth art walking, and it's down to the shore, and it's usually just a sort of 20 to 30-minute walk. And I'll get myself into a sort of presencing and sensing mode of being. So it's very much I decide that I'm going to go and do the practice today, and I'll adopt the earth walk process of sort of breathing in the smells, slowing my pace, looking around, again adopting Shinrin Yoko practices here as well, listening, pausing. And sometimes I'll go down to the shore after I've read a specific thing, or I might be cogitating on a specific thought or idea, or I might go with nothing and I'll just be entirely open to what might spark my attention or might glow at me while I'm on my walk. And I'll then use that as inspiration to kind of come through with further ideas and philosophical practice. So the presencing and the sensing is really vital. Feeling in my body, and that is very much helped by walking. So you're very much grounded and feeling very in your body, and not kind of allowing your thoughts to drift away. Being open is really, really important. So those places that I'm visiting where I'm going to sit and be still as I pause in different moments, whatever catches my eye. Having a sense of openness to the world is very important, and that unknowing, that uncertainty, being open to being affected by what I come across, and movement is really vital to the whole process. And I'll usually go down, I might take some photos, I might write something in my notes, and then I'll usually return to the house and I'll sit and start a sketchbook page, exploring some of these thoughts. I want to share another quote here from Donna Haraway, again around this idea of storying. So the story of Earth is at stake as we participate in it, the absolute obligation to become capable, to render each other capable of changing the story, a story of ongoingness cultivated in the earth, in the tunnels of the earth. And I wanted to share this as it very much resonates with this idea of philosophical journeying, of the arts-based practice with and as nature, this earth art walking, having relationship with the very place that I'm exploring for our future survival, and this idea of the ecological and social justice for our planet. So force and time, I wanted to share this one, and this photo was taken at the shore after we'd had quite high tides, and I've started noticing, well, I had started noticing down at the shore that larger rocks where seaweed is attached will often make these lines through the pebbles and the rocks. And I love this photo because in the background there is the mountains, these huge forces of rock, and then right down at the shore, this earth eye view photo that I took, you've got the tiniest pieces of sand and the little pebbles and the larger rocks. And looking at this is this kind of deep time of the relationship of rocks to each other and to the land, and the forms that emerge from erosion and time and force. So out of this photograph, I did a sketchbook page called Stories of Mountains and Stones, and really explored this idea of deep time, learning with Indigenous knowledges, looking at these cycles of the earth and our relationship with that, how they create these patterns, how they create these places, and our relationship with them. And up next is disruptive assumptions. So this happened one day when I was down at the shore, and a really high tide had come up and deposited a whole ton of seaweed over the grassland. And at the same time, the snow fell. And I call this disrupted assumptions because it was as if several things were coexisting in one patch of the shore, which you wouldn't normally expect to have there. So normally, salt water would melt the snow, and so you have the snow and the seaweed and the grassland all there together, and having the salt water and the seaweed so high up on the shore affecting the grassland. So I called this the stories of salt and snow, and I started kind of linking it back to sort of ecological knowledges and looking at this idea of disturbance and repatterning, and very much this idea of sort of recovery, shifting assumptions around how different ecologies and different spaces can have those shared entanglements. And I've kind of mentioned this boundarylessness, that there are spaces that cross over, and different meeting points and different relationships that will happen. And through this process of the sketchbooking and the scribing, I've also taken up the invitation from Tyson Yunkaporta in his book Sand Talk around exploring symbols of these dialogues between people as well as with place, and the stories that emerge from place. So on the other side here, I've got the symbol that I developed, which is the snowflake entangled with the seaweed. And this is something I'm exploring as well, this idea of symbols as language through the thesis. So I'd like to say a big thank you for listening, and I hope my short presentation gave a few insights into the art-based practice and earth art walking that I've been exploring as philosophical journeying for my thesis. And you can check out some more information on my rosamondebirch.space website page, and I'll soon have an arts page set up as well with more work and more photos and more information about my own practice as it emerges.